thank you for joining us for the Bay Area Older Adults and Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District's Lunch and Learn at Montebello Open Space Preserve. My name is Dr. Ann Ferguson, and I am Executive Director of Bay Area Older Adults, which I will call BAO for short. BAO is a nonprofit organization that improves the health and well-being of more than 42,000 adults age 50 each year. We trek on nature trails, learn about different cultures, explore historic sites, experience new culinary flavors, and help connect you to people with shared interests. Since 2013, we've taken more than 4,500 seniors who've walked more than 13,600 miles in more than 30 parks. Photos from some of our walks are shown here, along with our website address. The preserve we're exploring today is Montebello Preserve, which is one of the preserves protected by our partner, Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, which I will call MidPen for short. I would like to introduce Corey Skinner, shown here. She is Public Affairs Manager at MidPen, who will tell you about their agency. Thank you, Corey.
Thanks, Ann. Good afternoon, everyone. As Ann said, I'm Corrine Skinner, Public Affairs Manager at MidPen. That is me standing in a burned out hollow of an old growth redwood stump in El Corte de Madera Creek Preserve, one of MidPen's Skyline area preserves. That particular stump is on the Tafoni Trail. We are so excited to partner with Bay Area Older Adults on this series of informative virtual events. To start, I'd like to share a little with you about MidPen. MidPen helps plants, animals, and people thrive throughout the greater Santa Cruz Mountains region by preserving a connected greenbelt of nearly 65,000 acres of public open space. That's 100 square miles. Our missions you see on the screen can be summed up in 5 words: preserve, protect, restore, educate, and enjoy. Next slide, please. MidPen is a unique public agency. It's a special district created in 1972 by a grassroots voter initiative to protect the green foothills of Santa Clara County originally. A few years later, San Mateo County voters expanded the district on the peninsula side, or the bay side, and then in 2004 to the coast side. We manage 26 open space preserves with 245 miles of trails for you to explore, free of charge, all year long. Each of the dark green areas on this map indicate a MidPen preserve. Check out our website, openspace.org, for where to go, what you'll find there, how we work to manage the land, and even ways you can enjoy nature at home, like through this and other virtual presentations. Now let's go back to Ann for today's tour of Montebello Open Space Preserve, one of my favorites.
Thank you, Corey. So let's do our first question of the afternoon. As you can see on the slide, the question is, have you ever been to the Montebello Preserve? Yes or no? All right, so it looks like a small majority has been to the Montebello Preserve. So for those of you who've not been there before or haven't been there for a while, the preserve is located in Los Altos. The main parking lot has a specific address, which is 4301 Page Mill Road in Los Altos, and has about 45 spaces for cars. It's across the street from Los Trancos Preserve and 1.4 miles downhill from the intersection of Page Mill Road and Skyline Boulevard. As you can see here, it's adjacent to Skyline and Russian Ridge Preserves. There is a restroom at the main entrance, And I also want to point out that if you park at the Skyline Ridge parking lot, it's just a walk across the street to get to the Montebello trails that we'll be walking on today. So today we're exploring Montebello Preserve. It's a 3,100-acre preserve that has 15 miles of trails and 5 creeks running through it. Stevens Creek, Gold Mine Creek, Indian Cabin Creek, Indian Creek, and Bay Creek. The highest peak on the preserve is Black Mountain at 2,800 feet. This is a great spot for a winter walk after a good rain because you're more likely to see amphibians and reptiles by the creeks and mushrooms along the trails. The winter is a great season for finding mushrooms. So let's start with a reminder of the taxonomy we learned in high school. All life is classified into 6 kingdoms, and the one we're focusing on today is fungi. Fungi are broken down into divisions, or what is called phyla in the animal kingdom. There is some disagreement among mycologists, or fungus scientists, as to how to classify fungi into divisions. Originally, the classification was based on the way the fungus reproduces sexually and defined 4 divisions. With the advent of genomics, phylogenomics, and bioinformatics, some mycologists have expanded the number of divisions. The 2 divisions we're going to talk about and see on the trails today are Basidiomycota and Ascomycota. Specifically, we will see puffballs, mushrooms, and sac fungi. Before I go into some easy tips for identifying mushrooms, I want to stress, please do not pick fungi. I also cannot stress enough, do not eat any fungi you find at the parks, as some of them are poisonous and can cause gastrointestinal discomfort and even death. There is some evidence that people who have mold allergies may develop a skin allergy by simply touching certain fungi, so please be careful. Also, I want to be clear that mushroom identification is not always simple and can involve many more characteristics than I am describing today. So let's review the main parts of a mushroom that can be used for identification purposes. Interestingly, there are a number of mushrooms that look very similar to each other. So you'll need to take photos of the upper side and underside and bring a ruler with you to measure the parts of the mushroom in order to correctly identify it. The 3 main parts of a mushroom are its pileus, or cap, its stipe, or stem, and the underside, which is called a hymenophore, and is the tissue that produces the gametes, or spores. The other piece of information you want to note down is what the mushroom is growing on, or its substrate. Let's cover the pileus first. There are a great variety of cap shapes, from conical to flat and everything in between. They also have different textures, from warts to smooth. Also note the colors of the pileus. Take a look at the underside of the mushrooms. They store their spores in different ways. Some have lamellae, or gills. Some have a porous underside, and some have long or short teeth. Puffballs are an example of mushrooms whose hymenophore is hidden inside and cannot be seen. Look closely at the stipe, which can have bumps or dots, be rough or smooth. Some mushrooms, such as shelf or bracket mushrooms, don't have any stipe at all. Last but not least, note where you found the mushroom growing. Was it growing in the soil, a dead log, or a live tree? All of this information will help you identify the mushroom or fungus using guidebooks or online resources. Some suggestions are shown here and include 2 books, the Encyclopedia of Fungi and the National Audubon Society Field Guide to North American Mushrooms. A website that has a list of fungi found in California is called MycoWeb. And I also recommend using iNaturalist for the particular park or preserve you're in to narrow down the choices. Corey will post this information in the comments so you can copy it if you're interested. Now that we learned a little bit about mushrooms, I have a question for you. Look at this mushroom and tell me what kind of heminophore it has. I'll give you a little time to look at the image before you have your choices. So the choices are pores, teeth, lamellae or gills, or the heminophore is hidden because it's in the interior. All right, it looks like everyone chose lamellae or gills. And the correct answer is lamellae or gills. All right, I have another question for you. Which of these statements is false? The heminophore produces spores. Mushrooms can grow on live trees. Some mushrooms have no heminophore. Or some mushrooms have no stipe. All right, so it looks like most people have answered the statement that's false is some mushrooms have no heminophore. So that is the correct answer. So of course, since the heminophore has the spores that allows the mushrooms to reproduce, that's a vital part of the mushroom. So Native Americans treated certain mushrooms as sacred objects, and they were used in spiritual practices. They also used mushrooms as a healing tool. I'm sure many of you know that mushrooms were used for hundreds of years in mainly Asian countries for their medicinal properties. Initially, they were used to fight infections, and more recently, they've been used to treat pulmonary diseases and cancer. Medicinal mushrooms have been approved for use as adjuncts to standard cancer treatments in Japan and China for more than 30 years and have an extensive clinical history of safe use as single agents or combined with radiation or chemotherapy. One such mushroom is the turkey tail or Trametes versicolor. Turkey tail is a woody bracket polypore fungus that grows on dead logs all over the world. We will see many of these on the trails. Scientists have purified the active agent, polysaccharide K, and it has been studied in hundreds of clinical trials. Compiled results from using it as an adjuvant have shown statistically significant positive effects on boosting patients' immune system, overall survival, and other endpoints in gastric, colorectal, and lung cancer. I mentioned earlier that some mushrooms are hard to identify because they look like other mushrooms. Take a look at these 3 photos and tell me how many different types of mushrooms are shown here. Give you a little time to look at these. So your choices are, they're all the same mushroom, so 1. They're 2 different mushrooms. They're 3 different mushrooms. Or they're more than 3 mushrooms. So it looks like most people say they're all the same, but then we got quite a few people saying 2 and 3. So what's the correct answer? There are 3 different kinds of mushrooms. The common and scientific names are shown here. The golden ear, witch's butter, and orange jelly. Today we're taking a walk from the Skid Row trailhead. We park at the main entrance for Skyline Ridge, which has a restroom and is circled in red with the word START next to it. Then we walk across the street to the Skid Row Trail. This part of the trail is open to the sun until we reach the White Oak Trail, which goes uphill for 1.4 miles and has a bridge that crosses Stevens Creek along the way. It is heavily forested with lots of ferns, toyon, madrones, and tan oaks. We reach the top of the hill and make a right to continue on the White Oak Trail. Here we see rolling grasslands, views of Black Mountain, and the valley below. Before continuing on the Stevens Creek Nature Trail, there is a place to stop and use a restroom, which is in the main parking lot for Montebello Preserve. We head downhill for about 1 mile, going over bridges and passing the creek, and then make a right to get back onto the Skid Row Trail and head back to the Skyline Preserve parking lot. This loop is about 4 miles. So while you watch the park tour video, look at the mushrooms and fungi we see and note the characteristics of the cap, hymenophore, and stalk. Before I start, I just want to mention that the video was shot, edited, and produced by Dr. Ann Ferguson for Bay Area older adults. We spot some Dendroalcia. It's a native California moss and often covers entire tree trunks. Mosses have been around for more than 450 million years and survive drastic climate changes. They can live at temperatures ranging from negative 272 degrees to 100 degrees Celsius. This is a mature Daldinia concentrica from the division Ascomycota. The common name stems from the story about King Alfred, who took refuge in a peasant woman's home when he was on the run from the Vikings. The peasant asked him to watch her small loaves of bread cooking by the fire. He forgot and let the cakes burn. Fairy inkcap has gills and lives on decaying wood. False turkey tails mimic Trametes versicolor, or true turkey tail. The biggest difference between the two is that false turkey tails have smooth underside, and turkey tails have a porous underside. We turn left onto the White Oak Trail and head uphill through the forest in search of more mushrooms. A gem-studded puffball is edible when young and white. At maturity, a small hole opens at the top of the fruit body. When compressed by a passing animal or raindrop, a smoke-like cloud of spores is released. Growing out of a decaying tree along the trail and surrounded by bright green moss is artist conch. The parasitic yellow flat-footed fly's larvae lives on the fungus and stimulates the production of galls that produce cylindrical growths on the pore surface. It got its name from early settlers who used to sketch on its white underside that stains red when scratched. This mushroom is more than 1 foot across and takes years to grow this large. I found a photo of an even larger conch that is so sturdy a human can stand on it. Searching the ground cover, we find a newt. The rough-skinned and California newts are very similar in appearance, and it can be extremely difficult to differentiate between the species. Both are light brown to black on the upper body and orange to yellow on the underbelly. They both have granulated skin. One way to tell the difference is that rough-skinned newts' upper teeth form a V shape, while those of the California newt form a Y shape. But this newt's too busy to stop and smile for us. Turkey tail is common to the California woodlands. Its cap color ranges from brown to red, with concentric zones of light and dark bands and slightly fuzzy hair. We find a dusky-footed woodrat's nest. These rats are primarily vegetarians, nocturnal, and solitary except during the mating season. Their nests are built out of large piles of sticks, branches, and other debris. It's an elaborate structure with many rooms, tunnels, and entrances. They have separate areas for defecation, sleeping, giving birth, and food storage. Some wood rats' nests are over 60 years old, passed down through the generations. Since wood rats are solitary and their nests are large, the nests can be occupied by other small animals like mice, lizards, frogs, snakes, and salamanders. We come out of the forest and into the sunshine and grasslands and see birds in the bushes and the sky. We see a peregrine falcon flying across the sky. These are the largest falcons in North America and the fastest diving birds, reaching more than 200 miles an hour to catch their prey, and spotting them from almost 2 miles away. Next, we head down the Stevens Creek Nature Trail and back into the forest. Crowded parchment is a wood-decaying bracket or shelf fungus that is especially partial to oak trees. It has no stalk. The species name, complicatum, means folded back on itself. These mushrooms look like mac and cheese doodles and are commonly called jelly fungus. There are at least 11 kinds of jelly fungi that fall within 5 genera. 3 of the jelly fungi are yellow to orange color. Tremella aurantia, or golden ear, looks very much like Tremella mesenterica, or witch's butter, and both parasitize other fungi. One way to distinguish between the two is their host preference. Golden ear parasitizes false turkey tail, whereas witch's butter parasitizes a fungus called Piniophora. All of the orange-yellow jelly fungi we see are adjacent to false turkey tail. On a decaying log, see the small staghorn, a gregarious, gelatinous, and rubbery jelly fungus that grows to at most 1.5 centimeters tall and 1 millimeter thick. So the last question for you before we have Q&A is, which wildlife did we not see on the trails of Montebello Preserve? The choices are northern alligator lizard, golden crowned sparrow, jelly fungus, and Japanese umbrella inky. Again, which wildlife did we not see on the trail? So it looks like most people say the Japanese umbrella inky. Oh, it's tied with the northern alligator lizard. And then next in line is the golden crowned sparrow. So everyone remembered those fun jelly fungus. So the correct answer is we did not see the northern alligator lizard on the trails. We did see the southern alligator lizard. So I want to let you know that this presentation and other park tours are available at BAO's webpage shown here. It's our homepage, /videos. So if you have friends who missed this, they can watch that video a couple of days after we finish it and watch any of the older videos.
Thank you all very much for joining this presentation. I will have a few more links to post as we wrap up here. You can learn more about Bay Area older adults and about Mid-Penn by visiting our websites. I've given you that a couple times. I will add that to the links also. You can download trail maps at openspace.org/Montebello hyphenated MONTE-BELLO. You can also stay connected to Mid-Penn by following us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Look for at Mid-Penn Open Space. You can also follow Bay Area older adults on social media. This concludes our presentation for the day. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everybody.